Ford High School Weekly is brought to you by your Oklahoma Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Oklahoma. And by Rib Crib, smoking good stuff since '92.
Welcome to Ford High School Weekly. I'm your man, Deon Amade. And like we do every week, guys, my man, Wyatt Knight from Prep Redzone is here to talk high school football with us in the state of Oklahoma. And before we talk about that, I heard you got a new addition to the family that you kind of teased us about last week.
Yeah, it's been a crazy couple of weeks, but everybody's doing good now back at the house on September 16th. We welcomed my son, Wyatt Robert Knight, to our family. We're now a family of 4, 6 if you include our 2 dogs, which we do. But he's home. He's doing well. Mama's doing well. And his older sister Harper, our firstborn, she's been an unbelievable help, and she's loving being a big sister so far. So it's been really awesome.
Wyatt, that sounds like a great name for a speedy outside linebacker.
That, you know what, that's funny. One, it's my wife's maiden name, so it's one of those things where it's, we keep it in the family. But 2, a lot of people know Kenyatta Wright, former Oklahoma State standout, guy who I've grown to know a little bit. Put a picture of Wyatt out on social media, and he said he looks like a linebacker. I was like, well, he came into this world angry and with his head up, so he might be a backer in the future, but we'll see.
Well, other than your big news this week, there were some big things that happened all over the state of Oklahoma in high school football. And a lot of people are talking primarily about that Owasso Union game that went down. Kind of a shocker. Go ahead and give me your ideas of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with everybody else. I mean, everybody except for, the Union faithful, I would suppose. After what we saw the first 3 weeks of the season through non-district play, I don't think anybody would have predicted that with the combination of how Owasso was playing, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and then with Union coming off that shutout loss to Jinx. You knew that Union wasn't going to look as bad as they looked against Jinx, especially offensively. They were going to score. They were going to be able to put up points. But the biggest question was, were they going to be able to stop Owasso? And not only did they stop them, they almost shut them down completely. They give up the 1 touchdown, but that was about it. If you would have told me that the game would be going into overtime beforehand, I would have expected a shootout, not 7-7 at the end of regulation. So a lot of things about that matchup surprised me, where you taking the fact that it wasn't a shootout, it was 10-7, and then Union getting out with the win. And it puts Owasso in a position where they can't struggle the rest of the year, because that district is pretty competitive. And if they're to stumble another time through district play, they could end up on the road in the playoffs. And that path to Wanton Stadium for a state championship becomes all the more difficult. So they don't have any room for error. Union, great win for them. Complete bounce back win. But the one thing that I really took away is Jinx is without a doubt the number 1 team in 6A1. They shut out Union. Union then beats Owasso in overtime. The defending champs are the defending champs for a reason in those Jinx Trojans. They seem like they have things going in the right direction right now.
Did you hear about any individual players that stood out in that game versus Union and Owasso, or were there any, sides of the ball that really kind of, other than defense primarily, that kind of made you interested in the contest?
I think that for Union, it was kind of a start and finish thing. The way they started, you have to tip your cap to Grayson Tempest, their quarterback. He did an excellent job on that first drive, led Union right down the field. But then after that, they relied on that running game that we knew that Union would have coming into the season, with Rovon Banks, a senior, Antonio Smith, they call him junior. He is a senior as well. Antonio had a really good game. And so it was one of those things where Tempest started it with the passing attack, and then Union settled in and got that running game going. Smith had a really good game. But like you mentioned, man, in a 10-7 game, you can't help but talk about the defense. And Union's defense as a group did an excellent job shutting down Owasso's offense, because I mean we know what the Rams have on that side of the ball, and it's weapons everywhere, and they were held to 7 points, so you can't help but tip your cap to the entire defensive unit for Union.
Up next, Michael Knight and I will analyze last week's BA and Westmore game that also went down to the wire. Ford High School Weekly will be right back. Welcome back to Ford High School Weekly. We're talking with the one and only Michael Knight from Prep Redzone. We got an opportunity to watch BA versus Westmore down there in Moore, and it was a closer game than I think a lot of people expected it to be, coming down to the final seconds there. What have you heard about that game, and if so, what was the reason for BA and Westmore playing so closely?
Your guess is as good as mine on the second answer. I'm right there with you. I didn't expect it to be as close as we saw. I know playing those Thursday night games for the Tulsa area schools where they have to go on the road to the Oklahoma City area, those can be tough. And the same vice versa for the West Side schools coming up to the Tulsa area on a Thursday. That can be tough, man. You know, at the end of the day, we are talking about 15, 16, 17-year-old kids that are on the field playing these games. And as adults, it's kind of easy to shake that off. But these kids are in high school. It's a little different for them. But I think that the biggest thing that we came away from in terms of Broken Arrow was the play of Robert Spears Jennings, the OU commit, his first start, I believe, on the defensive side of the ball. He is committed to OU to play safety. Me personally, I still think he's one heck of a wide receiver, but at the same time, he's going to Norman for a reason on that defensive side of the ball, and he played really well. I know he had an interception. Big play at the end of the game as well, pass deflection to kind of seal the win for the Tigers. So his future is obviously bright on that side of the ball. But, look, they got another big game this week at home against Jinx. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can kind of get some momentum going.
Man, I'll say Jinx Trojans first time at home. That's a lot to put on your plate. But, I mean, RJ Spears Jennings did look really impressive on that defensive side of the ball. The interception, the pass breakup at the end when everybody in the stadium for sure thought that receiver had reeled it in and we were going to look at a tie ball game. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they fare against Jinx coming up this week.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing is, you mentioned the first home game, and these kids are just going to be so happy to not have to get on a bus. And I mean, you know how it is and we mentioned how it's tough to go get on a bus, drive across the state on a Thursday night, and then get home late, going to school the next morning. For them to just have to, walk across campus to the football facility, it's going to be a nice, refreshing thing for Broken Arrow. But then the game starts, and it's going to be a totally different story with the way Jinx has been playing the last couple of weeks.
I can imagine. Well, let's go ahead and stay on that west side of the state. One of the teams that's also kind of throwing us for a loop here and surprising quite a few people around the state of Oklahoma is Moore. And with them being now the only undefeated team in 6A1, it's caught a lot of people by surprise. So what's your opinion of that?
Yeah, I think that coming into the season, I thought that Moore would be one of those teams that would be, fighting for a playoff spot. They're in that district with Union, Owasso, also throwing Mustang and Norman North. And I think that, between them, Mustang, maybe even throwing Southmore into the mix, but this is all before the season, I thought they would be battling for that last playoff spot. But, I mean, right now, Moore, you have to consider them as a team that could threaten one of the East Side teams, whether it's Owasso or Union. Right now, I'll say that they won't threaten them, but I've been wrong plenty of times this season already, and it's not even October. So we'll wait and see on that. But I think that when you talk about the Lions, why they're successful, you have to start with Marcus Dawkins. He does everything for them. He lines up at running back. He lines up at wide receiver. He does a great job in the return game as well. So Marcus Dawkins, I knew coming into this season would be a really good player for them. He had a breakout season last year as a junior. He's one of the better guys in the state in terms of athletes that are uncommitted right now. And he's had a great start to his senior year, and he's a big reason why they're the last undefeated team in 6A1. The More Lions. I wouldn't have picked that back in August, but that's where we're at.
Coming up, we'll take a look at 6A2. Can anybody knock off those Bixby Spartans? Find out when Ford High School Weekly returns. Welcome back to Ford High School Weekly. We're talking with my man Michael Knight from Prep Redzone. Michael, now we talked about 6A1 with Moore and Owasso and all those big schools. Let's go ahead and dive into 6A2 and hash that out. Since the beginning of the season, who have you been impressed by? I know Bixby and Choctaw, those are the usual names that come out of that classification. But who are some of the schools that you've been impressed by and why?
Yeah, I mean, you have to start the conversation with Bixby. I mean, 40 consecutive wins. They look like that well-oiled machine, man. I don't know if anybody's going to be able to slow them down. Choctaw has looked really good. That was a good win for them last week against Booker T. Washington. I know everybody who saw that game or read about it, the only thing they want to talk about is all the penalties between the two programs. But look, I mean, those guys don't like each other, and it's okay. I'm all right with that. So, was it an easy game to watch? No, but at the same time, those two teams are really competitive, and they're going to be right there in the mix again. I've seen Stillwater in person. I'm impressed with them. Even though they've lost some guys off of last year's team, they still look like the same Stillwater Pioneers. It doesn't look like they lost anybody, although I was surprised that they got pushed to double overtime against Deer Creek to open up district play. Deer Creek's a sneaky team over there in the Oklahoma City area that could make things interesting in that West Side district in 6A2. And then you go back over to the Tulsa area. Sand Springs has done an outstanding job this year. We talked about them at the beginning of the season, and they're one of those dark horse teams where I mentioned it before. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Okay, it would surprise me if they beat Bixby, but if they were to upset Choctaw or upset Booker T. Washington, and I do think you have to consider it an upset, but that still wouldn't surprise me though, man. The way they're playing, the Pennington kid at quarterback, Blake Jones at running back, and head coach Bobby Klink has this program going in the direction that he wants it to go as a football program. The Sandites could be scary come November.
Who are some of the schools that everybody should keep an eye out on?
I'll do some quick hitters for you. So in Class 5A, I think you have to start with McAllister. I really like the way they began the season. They came in as my preseason #1 team in Class 5A, and they've kind of backed it up so far. They came to Tulsa and beat Bishop Kelly. That's a tough place to come and play and win a game. They shut them out. Ardmore down in southern Oklahoma, really like what they bring to the table. Those who haven't seen Ardmore play in a couple of years, this isn't the same Ardmore that we've seen earlier in the decade where they're running the option and they're running it, 40, 50 times a game. They're actually throwing the ball all over the field with junior quarterback Cal Swanson, who in my opinion is one of the better QBs in the state's junior class. So if you haven't checked them out, be sure to do that. But then when you're talking about 5A, there is that giant in Midwest City that still calls themselves champions, Carl Albert. You remember them? 5-time defending champions. They're off to a 2-2 start, but I'm telling you, I'm not going to count out the Titans anytime soon. And then in Class 4A, I think that we might have seen a preview on the eventual state championship game in that class in the district opener. It was Cushing hosting Tuttle. Tuttle was able to get out with a 22-7 win. Big-time defensive performance by Tuttle. Cushing has an offense that's been averaging over 40 points a game. They have a really good quarterback in Blaze Berlowitz, but he was shut down by Tuttle on Friday night. So I think that, in terms of Class 4A, it's those two teams at the top, and we might end up seeing it again. Poto will have something to say about it. Wagner will have something to say about it, and there's plenty of others. But right now in Class 4A, those two teams, Cushing and Tuttle specifically, looking like they're the cream of the crop.
Well, it's good to hear. Speaking of cream of the crop, before we get you out of here, we always try to touch on the recruiting news here in Oklahoma and see some commitments, some offers, and see who's kind of piquing a lot of people's interest. Who do you got for us to check out?
I think, we talked about Gavin Freeman in the past. He's having an excellent start to this season, but a guy who, staying in Class 3A, a guy who's had an excellent start to his senior season. He's actually already committed to Central Michigan. It's Lincoln Christian quarterback Max Brown. He is putting up some numbers that I did not expect. When you talk about passing, running, he's a true dual threat quarterback.
Well, Michael, it's good to hear from you this week, and thank you for all the information. And for the people who are looking out for more information, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can check us out, prepredzone.com. We're in over 35 states across the country, but go ahead and click on the Oklahoma tab. It'll take you to everything you need to know about Oklahoma high school football. We're putting out content every single day. We got a great group of writers that are going out to games every single week. We have content throughout the weekend. We have weekly reports that we do every single, Wednesday we have our uncommitted spotlight. Friday we have our players to watch. Every Sunday we do our top performers from the week. So things that you can expect every single week. And as always, you can follow us on Twitter at Prep Redzone OK. And if you're going and subscribing to the website, let me save you some money with a coupon code. Enter NIGHT25. That's KNIGHT 25, and that'll save you 25% off your subscription when you subscribe to Prep Redzone Oklahoma.
Well, thank you, my man. It's been another pleasure having you on this week. And go ahead and tell Wyatt we're waiting on him to make his debut here on Ford High School Weekly. It might happen in like 16 years, but we'll wait on him.
That's right. Yeah, I tweeted out. I was like, we got an early favorite for the number one prospect in the 2040 class, I believe he'll be. So look, I'm biased though. I'm biased.
You certainly are, man. Congratulations, and go have fun with the family.
Thanks, man.
We'll check out last week's highlights of both Ford games of the week when we continue on Ford High School Weekly. Welcome back to Ford High School Weekly. Baseball Hall of Famer Yogi Berra is credited with the expression, "It ain't over till it's over." Last week's games made Yogi's point.
Welcome back to Moore's School Stadium, 1912. Great football game here tonight as the Broken Arrow Tigers defeat the Westmore Jaguars. Let's take a look at some of the highlights, and we have plenty. You wouldn't think that many in a game that only had 31 points, but we had plenty of highlights.
Yeah, we certainly did. Take a look at this first one right here. A fumble and recovered by the Jaguars defense, but still no points on the board. But Jones with a phenomenal run down the sideline. Then look at this, the big-time quarterback, Griffin Staber, coming into the end zone with that 2-yard run. And this pick six by R.J. Spears-Jennings put the BA Tigers on the board defensively. And this fumble in the red zone was all that you could ask for from this defense of Westmore. They did it all game long. This interception was also a fumble, but still an interception and another turnover. Turnovers was the story of this game. Look at my man, number 21 for the Jaguars, Patterson McDonald, take that one all the way to the 10-yard line. And then the throwback pass from number 31 Arnold to Simpkins gets them on the board. Another fumble and gets pounced on by the Jaguars. Then Chavez was beautiful all night with the passing yards down the field. And this fumble right here, excellent execution, putting your helmet on the football by Franklin. And then they bring in the young quarterback, Blyce, and he's taken down hard by Banning. This ball we thought was touched and a fumble on the ensuing punt, but it was not. But still, look at my man, Andre Williams, showing his speed and abilities. And this pass, taking a look at the beautiful arm of Blyce, and Williams diving and was okay to get up and return to the sideline. And then the 2-minute drill. Blyce growing up between our eyes, and we thought this was a touchdown to tie the game, but R.J. Spears-Jennings says no. And this right here, another shot, another attempt. He gets hit from behind, and R.J. Spears-Jennings ends it, and that is a win for Broken Arrow, and that is a phenomenal game by both of these ball clubs.
Take a look at the final numbers there. Passing yards in the advantage, obviously, of Westmore. Rushing yards, big advantage, huge advantage for Broken Arrow. And your total yards there, you see the story. Turnovers 4 apiece, and you can bet that both coaches are going to be addressing that.
Week 1 of district play on YurView. Number 3 Union battling number 1 Owasso. The Union football team scores first. Quarterback Grayson Tempest, a 4-yard touchdown. That made it 7-0 as he capped off a 9-play, 78-yard drive that ate up 3 minutes and 22 seconds. We were tied at 7 going into the 4th.
Yeah, and then Mr. Billingham, 36-yard TD to our man Ronnie Thomas. Owasso wasn't going anywhere. We were all tied up. You take another look at it going deep. Thomas goes up, makes the play for the Rams, and we had ourselves a ball game. And then Mr. T getting it done. TJ Cowens, 20-yard touchdown kick, getting it done for his team. And how about that? The game winner, the player of the game, TJ Cowens, Mr. T, and able to come away with the win. Look at the excitement. 10-7. Union gets the district win over the Owasso Rams. When you look at the stats right there, 10-7, very tight game. When you look at the rushing, 161-39, you had the penalties, you had the 2 turnovers, but it came down to the special teams. 7-7, and then Mr. Cowan, he breaks the tie. 10-7, gets it done. 4th game of the week, a YurView Classic.
Burks, direct snap to Presley, right side. Oh, it's Kirby up there helping block for him. He's got it first down and more. He's going to be gone.
Be sure to go to yourview.com/OK for highlights and replays of the 4th game of the week. And check out our podcast and past episodes at yourview.com/OK. Stay tuned for tonight's 4th game of the week. Deer Creek and Putnam City meet here on Cox's YurView Channel 3 in the Oklahoma City area, and Jinx visit VA on Channel 3 in the Tulsa area. Both markets can see the other game on Channel 93. Remember, only the best in Oklahoma make it to Ford High School Weekly. So thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm Deanna Mate.
Ford High School Weekly has been brought to you by your Oklahoma Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Oklahoma. And by Rib Crib, smoking good stuff since '92.